On this episode of Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, I'm going to talk about how to value your business and how to set your business up so that you can justify the highest multiple possible should you ever wish to sell it.
Running a successful fee-based financial planning business is tough, and escaping the shackles of a commission-based financial planning practice is terrifying. When all you want to do is learn from those who know. Learn from financial planners who are there on the front lines doing it each and every day. What if you could just open their kimono and take a look inside to learn what works and what doesn't? Now there's a place where the secrets to running a fee-based financial planning business are revealed to those who believe. Fee-based financial planning mastery. Ease your mind.
Hi everyone, it's Scott Plaskett here, and thanks for joining me. In this podcast, you will learn what's working and what's not in the world of fee-based financial planning. In each episode, I'm going to open my kimono and let you take an insider's look at what's working and what's not in my practice to help you take your business to the next level. I've been a fee-based certified financial planner since the early 90s, so believe me, I know the challenges you're facing. So get ready to learn not from a teacher, coach, or guru, but from a colleague who's on the front lines just like you. And I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my email internet newsletter to get the most up-to-date tips on how to build and grow your fee-based financial planning practice by going to feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's new with me, and actually I'm going to talk about more about what inspired me for this episode. I had dinner, and I was really pleased to have dinner the other day with a very, very well-respected author. His name is John Warrillow, and if you don't recognize the name, you may recognize the name of the book. It's called Built to Sell, and I had dinner with John and participated in a full day-long seminar the next day with other entrepreneurs and business owners who were really there for the same reason. We were all trying to get some really good information on how to set up our business properly so that should we ever decide to sell it, we're going to get full value for it, and really about how to design your business so that you don't have to sell it and you can just thrive with not even having to be involved or be part of the business. So that was the session, and it was a fantastic session. I highly recommend it. At the end of this episode, in the show notes, I'm going to have a link to a copy of the book. So if you'd like to get your own copy, just click on the link and buy it right on Amazon and have it delivered. But it really is a fantastic book, and the information that we gleaned from John. The thing I like about John, and this is one of the rules that I tend to follow, is I will only work with or hire or listen to or pay attention to or whatever people who have actually been in the trenches and have done what they're talking about. I don't want to talk to people who think they know what they're talking about. I want people who know they know what they're talking about because they're speaking from firsthand experience. And that's what I appreciate about John. John, he's built and sold a few businesses, and he successfully took a service business, productized it, or I guess productized is the word we'll use, and sold the business. And he sold it for, I don't know what, but basically I know now that he's living in France and having a wonderful time there, traveling the world, giving sessions like the one he did with myself, and really it seems like his life is pretty good right now. So he went through in the book, and I've read the book, and it was really it was a game-changing book for me when I read it. I guess it was a few summers ago now. And I highly recommend it. I was reintroduced to John when I guess I got on his mailing list, and I got an email saying, "Hey, we're giving a session in Toronto. Do you want to come out?" So I, hopped on the opportunity, went out, and I was so glad I did. And it was a really great networking event as well. I was able to meet some really, really talented people, some really talented entrepreneurs, and people who were really doing it. And that's what I loved about it. I love surrounding myself with people who are doing it, not people who are thinking about doing it or who have great ideas about doing it, but people who are in the trenches right now doing it. So it was a great session, and that's kind of what inspired this episode, because I found a lot of what I've done with my business is exactly what he was talking about. So, it wasn't a big departure from what I needed to do. There was some fine tuning, obviously, that was done. And so what I'm going to do in the episode is go through all the details that I've done and that are important to take note of and to pay attention to when you're building your practice, so that as as you build the practice, you're building it in such a way so that it doesn't rely on you. It's going to generate the income that you're looking for, generate the revenue that you're looking for. And if the day comes when you do want to sell it, you're going to be able to command the highest possible multiple for your business and reap the rewards from that respect as well. So get to the point, really, my goal is to help people get to the point in this where they can sell it if they want to. But the reality is, if you do everything that we talk about in this, that I'm going to talk about in this episode, then at the end of the day, you may not want to sell the business because you're making so much money and you're having so much fun and you're loving everything you're doing. Why would you sell? So let's get to it.
And now for our feature segment.
So now it's time for some heavy lifting. We're going to talk about how to run your business so that you can justify the highest possible multiple when you sell. Now, a lot is going into this episode, and if it gets too heavy, then just bear with me because there's some great stuff here that at the end of the day, I'm talking about it today because this is the one thing ultimately that people want to get to when they're running their fee-based practices. They want to get to a point where the business is running efficiently, running profitably, and there's not a tremendous amount of stress involved. It just sort of runs like clockwork. And at the end of the day, when it does come time to exit yourself from the business, you're able to command the highest multiple possible. So the real question, or the starting question we're going to go through, is why are you running your own business? I mean, you need to ask yourself, what is it that got you into your own business in the first place? Was it the fact that you wanted some independence? You wanted the freedom from sort of the 9-to-5 work? You wanted to just make a lot of money? I mean, you heard it was a great way to make money, so you decided to do that. What is it that's driving you? What is it that really got you to do this? Because you can go do exactly what you're doing, get hired by another firm, and if what you're doing is what you love to do, then that's a great way of doing it. And then you take away all the stress and stuff that goes along with it. But the reality is you're doing it for yourself for a reason. And it probably has something to do with making a lot of extra money, keeping control, these types of things. So really you want to ask yourself, what is it you're doing? Why are you running your own business? Now, the question I have for you next is, how's that working for you? What's it like? If your goal was, listen, I wanted some more independence, well, you know what? The independence can get kind of lonely when you're doing it yourself. 9-to-5, you wish. I mean, mentally, it's now become 24/7. You never get away from it. You're working more than you would have if you worked for someone else, and you're maybe making more than you maybe if you were working for somebody else. But the reality is that if you're working many, many hours and you're constantly thinking about it, your hourly rate's pretty low. So, if you're still in the business where you're kind of trading hours for dollars, well, we want to make sure you can get away from that. So this is where the idea of being an entrepreneur and working for yourself it allures so many people in. And as Michael Gerber once said, it's someone having an entrepreneurial seizure. And then when they get into it, they realize that they truly aren't an entrepreneur. So we want to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? And then really, how's it working for you? And if it's not working great, well, before you give up, let's have this conversation. Let's go through this episode. So what's your end game is really the next question. I want to know if you've ever thought about that. Why are you doing this? At the end of the day, I mean, you're not doing this so you can have a job. You're doing this to create some freedom and to create some wealth for yourself and to add value and to contribute back to society. But what's your end game? I mean, what at the end of the day are you going to do with all of this? You have to have thought about that at least a little bit. It may be difficult to think about it because oftentimes you don't have an answer, and it's very difficult as business owners to continue thinking about something that we don't have an answer to because that just simply increases our level of stress. But at the end of the day, everybody, if you ask the question, if you went into a conference and asked 10 people, what's your end game? And they'd pretty much all say, well, you know what? I'm probably going to sell it. Probably going to sell my business at the end of the day. Well, my next question would be then, who's going to buy your business? Would you buy your business? If you were analyzing a business to buy, would you buy your business? Do you feel that there's value in your business? I mean, this is a question that you do have to ask. Now, a lot of dealers are setting up programs within their dealerships so that they can retain the assets because still the industry is built on I guess, the assets under administration model or the life policy renewals and that sort of thing. It's built on that. Now, in my mind, that's still backwards. The industry's been built backwards, and this is part of why I'm doing this, is so we can try and help correct a lot of this. But the reality is that a lot of the dealers are setting up programs within their organizations in order to retain the assets. So they're saying, listen, we're going to put together a program where if you are wanting to exit the business, we'll buy your book from you. We'll have a preset multiple that we're going to use. We're going to buy that business, distribute it back to other agents, or we'll even help facilitate the transaction, and we'll finance the transaction, or we'll put some financing in place to help the transaction take place, all so that they can keep those assets within their dealership, because those assets in most dealerships are what allow those dealerships to run profitably. And if they start losing business to people selling their books and selling their businesses to advisors that are not within that dealership, well, then they're starting to lose revenue as well. So succession planning programs are becoming more and more important to the dealers. And so you'll start to see that the dealers are really going to be emphasizing this. And if your dealer doesn't currently have a plan, well, believe me, they've been talking about it, and they're probably going to put one in place. So then the question is, well, what's somebody going to pay you? Because if a dealer is setting up a plan that is going to make it nice and easy, well, you know what? They're probably going to make sure that it is nice and easy. So they're probably not going to allow you to command the highest multiple that you otherwise possibly could if you did a good job in shopping your business around. So keep that in mind, that the dealers, although they're making it nice and simple, they may not be doing you the best favor, because they may not be allowing you to command the highest multiple for your business. So how are businesses valued then? How do we determine what the valuation to put on your business? I mean, there's a lot of industry jargon that goes out there, and people are saying, oh, it's 2.5 times trail, or, it's a multiple of 2.5 times, whatever the number may be. Could be 3 times, could be 4 times, could be 1 time. It all depends who you speak to. And this is one of those things. It's like investments. Nobody really talks about the losses. They always want to brag and talk and boast about their profits, but nobody wants to talk about their losses. Well, nobody wants to talk about a transaction that maybe is commanding a lower multiple. They just want everybody to think, oh yeah, I sold my business for a huge multiple. Or if you're on the buying side, you can say, yeah, I bought that for a song. It was so cheap, it made a lot of sense, and I really got a good deal for it. Well, the reality is, it's somewhere in between. So the question then is, how are businesses valued? Well, they're valued based on one thing and one thing only, and that is profits. Pre-tax profits. How much is this business making on a profitability standpoint after all of your expenses, your payroll, and all that sort of stuff is done? How much are these businesses making from a profit standpoint? So if you're not retaining profits in your business, then really what you've done is you've created a job for yourself. A business is something that makes profits every year, or tries to make profits every year. And as they start to grow the business, and as the business to move forward, the profits start to increase, and then efficiencies, and then they may take some of those profits, reinvest it back into the business for even higher profits. But everything is done at the end of the day for profits, not for income. So then what they'll do is they'll take the profits and they apply to that, well, what's the discount rate? And a discount rate is something that's used. It's basically, if you look at it this way, you say, look, if I was going to take $100,000 and I was going to buy an investment, what rate of return would I need to make on that to compensate me for the type of risk that I'm taking? Well, that's your discount rate. So if you know that you're going to be, if you have a business that you're looking at that's got a consistent profit of $100,000 a year, then you can say, well, I'm going to discount that because I want to make on whatever I invest in that. I want to make, I don't know, could be 15%, could be 20%, could be, 10, 15, 30, 50, who knows what it is. It's whatever the return is that you feel is required to compensate you for the type of risk that you're taking for buying the investment. That's what's called your discount rate. So if you, for this example, if you have a business that's spinning out $100,000 in pre-tax profits every year, and you come and say, okay, I'm going to put a 15% rate on that. I want to make 15% of my money. If I buy that business, then I need to make at least 15% of my money for that to be a worthwhile investment. Okay, so that's your discount rate. So in the first year, if next year is going to make $100,000, then you're saying, well, then I will invest $86,957 today for the right to receive that $100,000 next year at the end of the year. So you can see I've just simply done a discount calculation. $86,957 is basically $100,000 discounted by 1 year by 15%. That's what it is. Well, that's the initial year. So basically you're buying 1 year's of profit and you're paying for it today for the right to receive that profit in the future. So you get all your money back plus your return. There's your 15%. But what about the next year? So the next year, 2 years down the road, it's going to make $100,000. So what am I willing to pay for that today? Well, you can start to see that as you continue doing this, you're starting to build a valuation for that particular investment. Because if that investment or if that business is going to be spinning off $100,000 every year, then you can start to quantify what it is you're willing to pay for that, the right to receive that level of income or that level of profit. So if you have $100,000 in the second year, then you'll be willing to pay $75,614 today. So all I've done is I've discounted $100,000 by 15% over 2 years. Now, do this for 10 years and then add up each year's what's called the net present value. So that $75,614 is the net present value of the profits that are expected to be generated in 2 years. So if you do that for, say, 10 years and add it all up, then in this example, the value of that business is $500,000. Or you can say it's a 5 times multiple with a 15% discount rate on that $100,000 profit. So that just gives you an idea of how we're quantifying it so that you can almost reverse engineer. If somebody offers you a certain price, you can kind of reverse engineer it and say, okay, well, wait a minute, what kind of multiple are they looking for? And just simply say, well, if they're going to be paying me this, take a 10-year number and use a discount and just start playing with the multiple and say, well, how did they come up with that valuation? And that'll give you an idea of what level of risk they see is associated with your business because they're making an investment. They need to make a certain rate of return to compensate them for the risk that they're taking for the right to receive those profits in the future. Now, if you had a 50% rate of return on that same example, then your multiple actually is only 2 times because if you discount 50%, you want to make 50% on your money every single year. Well, then you've got to discount that. Well, that brings it down to about $200,000. So that just gives you, again, a little bit of an understanding about how the number is being calculated so you can reverse engineer it so that if anybody ever makes an offer to purchase your business and they say the dollar I'm going to pay is $500,000, and you know that your business is generating a pre-tax profit of $100,000 a year, then you can say, you know what? I run a rough calculation that says they're paying me a 5 times multiple, or they're looking for a 15% return on their money every year. And that's how it's done. So that gives us sort of the building blocks to start from. Now, the one thing we also know is that $100,000 is probably going to grow. So the profits every year are going to grow. So what you want to do is take a look at your own business and ask yourself, well, how have my profits what's the rate at which they've been increasing each year? So go back as far as you can and take a look and say, okay, well, the profits were $100,000 last year. This year, they're $120,000. Okay, so that means there's a 20% growth. And if you can average that out over the course of, maybe 5 or as many years as you can, then you can start to see what your growth rate is every year on those profits. So you can start to see, okay, well, then I can then justify commanding a higher multiple or a higher price for my business because it's not just $100,000 a year. It's going to be $100,000 plus some profits because maybe there's market appreciation. There's a lot of things that will increase the value that you're capitalizing on that are allowing your profitability to grow every year. So if that's the case, then you can then simply work that in. Well, if you do that same calculation and you've got a 20% growth rate every year, if you're using a 15% discount rate, but you have a 20% growth rate, then the value of that business changes from $500,000 to $1.2 million. That growth rate is powerful. So you need to be able to then justify what it is about your business that you are able to say, look, this business is going to keep on growing and here's why. And this is why you're not offering enough because there's a pretty predictable growth rate and we can factor in. And so part of the process of going through and selling your business is educating the buyer on exactly what it is that they're buying. They may not know your business as well as you do, so you want to make sure you're educating them on that. So you want to have this information sort of in your back pocket in advance so that you know exactly how to sell your business. Now, not all revenue streams attract the same discount rate, and the discount rate is all a factor of risk. So what do I mean by that? Well, in our businesses, we have different types of revenue. Okay, so we have things like deferred sales charge commissions, so transaction commissions, anything that you receive on the transaction of, we'll use it in investments in this case. So you have investments that are going to transact. How do you purchase those investments? Are you getting a commission up front? Are you getting trailer fees where you're basically buying no load investments, or you're not putting any loads on the investments and just getting a trailer fee? Are you getting referral fees on the investments? Are you generating insurance revenue? Well, what are your insurance commissions? And are they consistent? Are they, what's your rationale for how you're able to continue that level of production? Then you've also got financial planning fees. So the financial planning fees, these are the fees that you're charging for the writing of your financial plans and the maintaining of the financial plans, and the right for these clients to be part of your unique process and a unique financial planning model. So these are all the different types of revenues that come into our business. Now, each one of those types of revenues needs to be assessed on the level of risk of whether or not that revenue stream is going to be easily replicable. So can you replicate that revenue stream without a lot of effort? If it takes a lot of effort and there's a high level of effort, then that means the risk on that is higher, which means the multiple is probably going to be lower, or the discount rate is going to be higher. People are going to, if it's a higher risk, they're going to command a higher rate of return on their investment on that. So I basically categorize things into three categories: high risk, medium risk, or low risk. Now, high risk is where there's a lot of sales efforts required. So you need to have a certain skill set. You need to actually put a lot of energy in to continuing that revenue stream. So examples of those would be insurance commissions or investment commissions. Those commissions will only happen if you show up every day and you make those sales. You need to have production that's going to generate those sales. So basically, there's a higher level of risk on that because it's kind of, this is where your relationship with your prospects and clients come in. If you're buying somebody else's relationship and they're the one that's been doing the sales all the time, well, it may be more difficult for you to do it. So the risk is a little bit higher. So you may command a higher return on that to compensate you for the risk that you're taking, which means you'd be paying less for that particular block of the business. Now, other things which would be medium risk. So this is where you may have a pretty reliable stream of or reliable ability to be able to generate that revenue, but there are external factors that may cause havoc with that. And this one can sort of increase or decrease your multiple. And what that is market risk. So if you're basing, let's say most of your revenue comes from referral fees as a percentage of the investments, or trailer fees, which are also a percentage of the investments. Well, in a market decline, then the risk on that has gone up because now you've got a smaller asset base that you're drawing from, and a percentage of a smaller number is a smaller number. However, if you're going through a period or a market cycle where things are really, really trending upwards and things are appreciating and the markets are moving forward, then you can then say, you know what? Realistically, next year, things are looking good. You're going to just make natural appreciation on this asset because of market appreciation. So you can have that one work for you or work against you. And so just keep that in mind. And then the next one is the low risk. And this is what your goal is. You want to try and move everything you possibly can in your business into the low risk category, because this is where it doesn't require a lot of effort on your part. Really, all you have to do is show up and make sure the business keeps on running, and the renewal fees and that sort of thing are going to come through. An example of that are the financial planning fees. So with the financial planning fees, however, I have broken them into two different types. There is a high risk associated with financial planning fees and a low risk associated with them. Now, it's because there's two different types of fees. With the financial planning fees, you've got your initial year's fee. So that's the fee that you generate from new clients coming on. But then you've got your auto renewal fees, and those are from your existing clients, and it's basically their payment to you to keep their plan up to date. So we set things up so it's an auto renew type situation where really a client of ours, then every year we just charge their credit card or however you want to do it. But the stream of revenue is quite predictable, and that will command a much higher multiple because you say, look, it's pretty easy to make that money. So it's going to be just easy money in the bank. So you're going to command a higher multiple, or you're going to require a lower discount rate on that because it is a lower risk investment in that particular component. So that's how you want to be looking at the different types of revenue coming into your business. You want to categorize them as high risk, medium risk, and low risk so that you can actually dissect that and sort of extract the revenue stream that you've got and find out a little bit more and get a little more educated on the multiples that you're looking for in each one. So you can really put together a bit of a spreadsheet on this and say, okay, well, of my revenue, we know that, if 50% came from high risk and 25% was from medium risk and 25% was from low risk, then you can say on that 100,000, if it was $100,000 in profit, 50,000 would be high risk. And so you understand there's probably a higher multiple, but then you can start to command a lower discount rate on the other components for that purpose. So you can give yourself a bit of an idea of how to blend your ideal, revenue discount rate, which is a sort of a weighted average of the profits coming in and the level of risk associated with each component of those profits. So that's, one of the things you also want to look at is making sure that you really know your numbers, so that when you go through, if you are involved in and really want to sell your business, you're much more educated on your business, so you can start to really sell what it is people are buying. And when they start to understand that you really know your numbers, then they'll start to take you a little more seriously. And you know what? It looks better. The optics of that are so much better, where they say, this guy really knows his business. The reality is, it's probably going to work the way he is. And if he's got strong reasons for why this revenue stream is really low risk, that it's going to be consistent and continue because he's got a historical track record of all that, then it just allows you to justify a higher fee for your business. So, value your business. How do we do that? There's really a 4-step process. So the first thing you want to do is you want to determine the average profit growth for the past handful of years. So again, go back, take a look at the growth pattern. What's the average growth rate been on your business? So just take the growth year over year and then average it out. What does that average number work out to? Then determine what your profit is for this year. Break that profit into low, medium, and high risk and put a multiple on each risk level. So that third step of breaking that profit into the different categories is really, really important, because now this is all about building the rationale as to why you're commanding a higher price for your business. And then run a 10-year analysis to determine your net present value of your business. So once you've done that, it's a spreadsheet and you've got this basic nice working document that you can key your numbers into. You can say, well, I know of these different types of revenue streams. They're low, medium, high risk. You plug them into the spreadsheet. You put a discount rate so you can just estimate it and kind of noodle a little bit, so that when somebody comes back to you with an offer and they say, well, I'm willing to pay X for your business, you can actually look at that, reverse engineer it to determine what kind of multiples they're paying on your business and what kind of discount rate they're applying, so you can then say, does that make sense or not? It just allows you to make some better decisions when offers do come in. Now, how to justifiably increase the value of your business? That's really the key to this whole thing, is how do I design my business and grow my business and build my business so that I can command the highest multiple possible? And really, this is what being a business owner is all about. So the fee revenue is the most important part of your business for this purpose, because the fee revenue carries with it the most value to a buyer. This is one of the reasons why getting involved and transitioning yourself and migrating yourself to a fee-based financial planning practice is so important, because at the end of the day, it's where you're going to be able to command the highest multiple. So why do fee revenues carry a higher multiple or a lower discount rate than any other? And well, it's because that revenue is very predictable. It's recurring. So you've got the recurring revenue. The fees especially are not market dependent. So fee revenue, as I said before, is considered low risk, which simply means no matter what, year over year, you are going to get that revenue coming in. As long as you take care of your clients and as long as you service them properly, that revenue is going to be fairly consistent. It's not going to be affected if the markets go down, if the markets go up. It's completely separate from all of that. So it's a very, very low risk type of revenue. And the main focus that you want to do in order to build a multiple for your business is to focus on, how do I command the most renewable fees for my business. So number one, fee revenue carries with it the most value to a buyer. So the goal is to simply build your business on fees. Do everything you possibly can to make those fees not market dependent and just make them consistent. So how do you do that? What's the easiest way of doing that? Well, first of all, you've got to be able to charge fees. So if you're not in an environment or you're not in a structure where you can charge fees, and I'm talking literally charging a credit card, then you do need to take a look at what you need to do to get that in place. So turn your service, so the service you provide, your financial planning services, turn that service into a product and then sell the hell out of it as your product. This is what differentiates you. This is what allows you to scale your business. This is what allows so much. This is the essence of running a fee-based financial planning practice. This is how we can justify the fees. This is how we show value for what it is that we're doing. So how do you scale your business, or why do you scale your business in this case? So when you've got this, when you've turned your product or service into a product, now you can scale your business. And the reason why you can do that is because number one, it's teachable. So when you've got this process that you've created and you've taken your service and you said, okay, we do this. This is what's unique to us. We're going to turn it into a product now, and this is the product we're going to be selling. Now you can teach others how to do that. You can then, it's also quite valuable. So number two is scale your business because it's valuable. Now you've got something you can charge whatever you want for because you're the only one doing it. So you can set your own price. And number three, it's repeatable. You know that because you've got a process in place, the product is going to be repeatable. This is what allows you to start to build tremendous value and efficiencies into your business so you can command those higher multiples. Now, the benefits of turning your service into a product, or what's also known as productizing, are simply, number one, creating a unique process gives you, what I said before, price control. You can charge what you want. Charge as much as possible. So when you're the only one who's allowed or licensed or whatever you want to call it to do your particularly unique process, you can charge whatever you want. You don't have any competition. So charge as much as you can that justifies the value that a client is getting. If they're getting a lot of value, then you can command a much higher price. So do everything you can in productizing your business, bring as much value to the table as possible. It also allows you to hire salespeople to sell it, which solves, in my mind, man, this is the biggest problem we as financial planners have in this industry. The biggest problem is, how do I scale my business? How do I grow my business without running the risk or increasing the risk of somebody bringing on a junior, bringing on another financial planner, and then at the end of the day, having them walk away with all your clients? I've seen it done before. I've seen it happen. I have colleagues that have had other planners in their office, and those planners have, built relationships with their clients and everything was going great. And then one day they came in and they basically were notified that that particular planner decided that they were going to go and open up their own business, and all the relationships were going with them. That is a very stressful position to be in. So when you've productized your business, you can now hire salespeople to sell the product, not the actual relationship. So it means that you can go outside of the industry. You can go to other industries where people are just naturally good salespeople and say, look, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is the product we've created. Now go out there and sell it for me. And because it's got a fee associated with it, this is the price for the product. People can sell products. It's very, very difficult to sell services, because services are kind of open-ended, people are afraid to get involved with that because it's just kind of open-ended. And so there's some risk associated with that. But when you actually have a process that you've productized, then the salespeople can actually sell that. What that means is they're out there selling, but once they've sold that product to a client, they're not the one who's actually implementing it. The client now becomes a client of the firm, and the firm services and implements and builds the relationship with the client. So we'll talk about this in future episodes, but that is really huge benefit, is that it allows you to hire salespeople without the risk of those salespeople walking away with your business. And the next step, or the third point, is your team will always know what to do. Your staff knows what to do at each stage of your process. So when you document your process and you have this great process that just adding so much value, and people are saying, wow, man, you're the one who does that. I want that. This is exactly what I need. Well, now you know that everybody goes through the same process. When you know that, you can start to put together checklists and unique methods and for how we do what we do so you can get the same result every single time. It's the same process everybody goes through. So document your process and then outline who does what at the various stages of your process. So that's how you can get your team to start taking over a lot of what you're already doing. You see, we as financial planners, we work on islands by ourselves. We do it all. But the reality is, if you want to grow your business to the next level and take it to the next level, and you want to do it profitably without really killing yourself, you need to hire people. You need to bring on support staff. Well, the question is, well, how are they going to do? What are they going to know what to do? How do we design it so that they know what to do and when to do it, and that it's going to be done right and all that sort of stuff? Well, it's very simple. Simply document what you do, put it into a screen capture or a screencast video, or write it down in a checklist format, just like you would if you were a pilot doing your pre-flight checklist. Put checklists together for each stage of your process so that everybody knows, okay, when the client comes in for stage 1, this is what happens. This is how we set up for the meeting. This is what happens during the meeting. And this is what happens after the meeting. So document all those processes. The great thing is you just have to do it once. Spend the time looking at the details, do it once, and then you can start to hire people to do the components of your process for you. So that is it. I think that if you follow these steps, at the end of the day, you will have built a business that is worth so much more to someone else because it's got a process, because it's profitable, it's predictable, it's reliable. It's actually a fun business to run. And the reality is, at the end of the day, you may not even want to sell. You may want to just continue doing it because you're making so much money, you're having so much fun, you're adding so much value, contributing back to society. What a great position to be in. So go to www.feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com. Click on episode 5. There, post any questions you've got. Ask me anything. Put some comments. Let's communicate a little bit about this. What are your thoughts about this? Do you agree that this is a good process to go through? Have you bought a business before? Have you sold a business before? I've actually done both, so I can speak on both sides of it. I know what works. I know what doesn't. So what are your thoughts? What are your comments? What works? What's worked and what hasn't for you? Let's talk about it. Let's help everybody else out so we can build a better industry. And also check out the toolbox and the recommended reading list to see a list of other resources I use to run my successful fee-based financial planning practice. So get out there and build yourself a better business.
You've been listening to Scott E. Plaskett, a certified financial planner and industry veteran in the world of fee-based financial planning. Want free resources to help you build a better fee-based financial planning firm? Visit ilovefinancialplanning.com right now to register for Scott's Inner Circle email list, where you'll get front-of-the-line updates on the latest resources that are driving profits to Scott's fee-based financial planning practice. All of the resources are pulled directly from the highly acclaimed Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery Academy. Go now to ilovefinancialplanning.com. Build a better business and make more money with your fee-based financial planning practice today.